Europe, 1940. The continent that once believed itself to be the center of civilization now lies under the boots of Nazi occupation. Cities fall in weeks, governments collapse in days, radios are silenced, flags are replaced overnight. From Paris to Warsaw, from Oslo to Athens, the German war machine advances with terrifying speed. To the world, it seems absolute. To the occupiers, resistance appears impossible. But beneath the surface, another war is already beginning. If you enjoy these war journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought in the comments below. This helps others find their way here too. For now, let's begin our journey. This is not a war of tanks or massed armies. It has no front lines, no uniforms, no clear victories. It is fought in basements, forests, attics, train stations, and alleyways. It is fought by students, farmers, factory workers, priests, teachers, housewives, and children. Many of them never fire a single shot, yet their actions will slow divisions, derail supply lines, assassinate officers, rescue downed pilots, transmit secrets, and ultimately help crack the Nazi grip on Europe. This is the hidden war of the European resistance. From the very first days of occupation, ordinary people make extraordinary choices. In Poland, even before Warsaw fully falls, underground networks are forming. Teachers continue classes in secret, preserving Polish culture under penalty of death. Scouts become couriers. Clergymen hide weapons beneath church floors. The Polish underground state, unlike any resistance movement in history, recreates an entire shadow government, courts, education, intelligence, and armed units right under German noses. In France, the collapse of the Third Republic shocks the nation. The armistice divides the country, but it also divides consciences. Some collaborate, others refuse. At first, resistance is fragmented and hesitant. A pamphlet printed at night, a whispered warning, a railway delay disguised as incompetence. But these early acts matter. They keep the idea of defiance alive in a society paralyzed by defeat. One of the most dangerous weapons of the resistance is not a gun, but information. Across occupied Europe, clandestine newspapers emerge almost immediately. In France alone, hundreds of illegal publications circulate, often produced with stolen ink and hidden presses. Reading them is a crime, distributing them is a death sentence, yet people read them anyway, passing them hand to hand, restoring a sense of truth in a world flooded with propaganda. In Norway, teachers become some of the earliest resistors. When the Quisling regime and Nazi authorities attempt to force schools to adopt fascist ideology, thousands of educators quietly refuse. Many are arrested and sent to camps, but the movement holds. The regime eventually backs down. It is one of the first clear, non-violent victories against Nazi control in occupied Europe. Meanwhile, in the forests of Eastern Europe, resistance takes a very different form. In Belarus, Ukraine, and parts of Poland, partisan warfare explodes. Small bands of fighters, often poorly armed, use knowledge of the terrain to ambush German units, destroy bridges, and vanish back into the woods. German reports repeatedly underestimate these forces, dismissing them as bandits. In reality, they tie down hundreds of thousands of Axis troops who are desperately needed at the front. The cost is brutal. Nazi reprisals are systematic and merciless. For every German soldier killed, dozens or even hundreds of civilians may be executed. Entire villages are erased from the map. Yet even this terror does not extinguish resistance. In many cases, it fuels it. One of the most remarkable aspects of the European resistance is how deeply women are involved. They serve as couriers, spies, radio operators, saboteurs, and organizers. Women often attract less suspicion at checkpoints, allowing them to move messages, weapons, and explosives with greater freedom. Many of the most effective resistance networks rely almost entirely on female operatives. If captured, they face torture, deportation, or execution, no different than men. Communication becomes the lifeline of the underground war. Secret radios, often assembled from smuggled or stolen parts, transmit intelligence to London and Moscow. Operators know that German direction-finding units can locate a broadcast in minutes. Standard procedure is to transmit for no more than 20 minutes before relocating. Even so, many are caught. Their average life expectancy can be measured in weeks. In the Netherlands, resistance members meticulously document Nazi atrocities and the deportation of Jews. These records will later serve as vital evidence of the Holocaust. Dutch resistance also organizes one of the most extensive hiding operations in Europe, sheltering thousands of Jewish families in attics, farms, and false walls. Entire communities silently cooperate, knowing that discovery means death for everyone involved. Acts of sabotage grow increasingly sophisticated. Railway lines are cut just before troop movements. Fuel depots explode at night. Telephone cables are severed. Factory machinery is deliberately misaligned to produce defective weapons. These actions rarely make headlines, but their cumulative effect is enormous. German logistics become unreliable. Delays ripple across occupied territories. Perhaps most importantly, resistance networks become critical to the Allied war effort. Downed British and American pilots are hidden, treated, and smuggled across borders through escape lines that stretch from France to Spain, from Belgium to Switzerland. These networks operate with astonishing efficiency, moving men across hundreds of kilometers through hostile territory. Many of the people involved will never be recognized, their names lost to history. The resistance is not a single movement, nor is it unified. Political divisions are constant. Communists, nationalists, royalists, liberals all fight the occupier, but not always each other's allies. In some regions, these tensions will erupt into violence even before the war ends. Yet despite these fractures, the shared goal of survival and defiance holds. By 1942, the German High Command is forced to acknowledge what it once dismissed. Internal documents describe resistance as a serious threat. Entire divisions are diverted from the Eastern Front to conduct anti-partisan operations. Intelligence leaks multiply. Occupation becomes increasingly expensive and unstable. Still, victory is far from certain. For every successful operation, countless others fail. Prisons fill, camps overflow, names are erased, families disappear. Resistance is not heroic in the cinematic sense. It is exhausting, paranoid, and often lonely. Trust is a rare commodity. A single informant can destroy an entire network. And yet, the resistance endures. Because every message passed, every rail sabotaged, every child taught in secret, every life hidden, and every truth printed is a declaration that occupation is not acceptance, that domination is not destiny. This is the beginning of the Shadow War, a war without medals, without parades, but one that will shape the fate of Europe just as surely as any battle fought in the open. As the war grinds on, the resistance across Europe evolves. What began as scattered acts of defiance becomes something far more dangerous to the occupiers, organized, coordinated, and increasingly lethal. By 1942 and 1943, the underground war reaches a new phase. The resistance is no longer only surviving, it is striking back. Across France, resistance cells specialize. Some focus solely on intelligence, mapping German troop movements, coastal defenses, and supply routes. Others handle sabotage. Others manage escape lines. Compartmentalization becomes essential. Most members know only a handful of contacts. If captured, they can betray little, even under torture. Sabotage becomes one of the most effective weapons of the resistance, precisely because it rarely looks dramatic. A loosened bolt on a locomotive, sand poured into fuel tanks, a time delay introduced into factory production. These acts are designed not for spectacle, but for cumulative disruption. German trains arrive late, weapons malfunction at the front, supplies vanish. The rail war becomes central. In Belgium, France, and the Netherlands, railway workers quietly cooperate with resistance groups. Signals fail at critical moments, switches are misaligned, entire troop convoys are stranded for hours or days. German reports repeatedly complain about technical failures, unaware that an invisible army is at work. In Yugoslavia, resistance escalates into full-scale guerrilla warfare. Partisan units under leaders like Josip Broz Tito control entire regions, forcing the Axis to launch massive anti-partisan campaigns. These operations consume men, fuel, aircraft, and time, resources desperately needed elsewhere. German commanders describe Yugoslavia as a bleeding wound that cannot be closed. The response from the occupiers is ruthless. Collective punishment becomes standard policy. In France, entire villages like Oradour de Cerglon are massacred in retaliation for resistance activity. In Eastern Europe, anti-partisan operations often blur into genocidal campaigns, targeting civilians indiscriminately. The intent is clear: terror as deterrence. But terror does not work as planned. Every atrocity spreads outrage. Funerals become silent protests. New recruits join the underground not because they believe they will win, but because submission now feels impossible. Resistance becomes as much moral as military. Intelligence gathering reaches unprecedented levels of sophistication. In Poland, the Home Army infiltrates German administrative offices, rail networks, and even concentration camp systems. Reports from inside Auschwitz, compiled at enormous personal risk, are smuggled to the West, offering some of the earliest detailed accounts of the Holocaust. These warnings are real, they are accurate, and yet they are often met with disbelief. Resistance radio operators form the fragile bridge between occupied Europe and Allied command. Messages are encoded, transmitted, and erased in minutes. Many operators sleep in a different location every night. Even so, the Germans relentlessly hunt them. Direction-finding vans roam cities, triangulating signals. When an operator is caught, entire networks often collapse within days. Women continue to play a critical role. Couriers cycle hundreds of kilometers, carrying microfilm hidden in clothing, shoes, or even inside everyday objects. Some resistance leaders later admit that without women, the underground would have failed entirely. Their mobility, resilience, and ability to operate under constant fear keep networks alive. In Denmark, resistance initially remains limited, but as deportations of Jews begin in 1943, everything changes. Ordinary citizens, fishermen, shopkeepers, students mobilize almost overnight. In one of the most remarkable rescue efforts of the war, over 7,000 Danish Jews are smuggled by boat to neutral Sweden. The operation succeeds largely because the population chooses collective defiance. Elsewhere, resistance takes darker forms. Assassinations become more frequent. German officers are targeted in cafes, streets, and offices. These operations are controversial even within the resistance itself, as retributions are inevitable. But for many groups, eliminating key figures is seen as necessary to disrupt command and morale. The moral complexity of resistance is constant. Decisions are rarely clear-cut. Is it worth destroying a bridge if civilians will be executed in response? Is silence complicity or survival? There are no clean answers. Survivors will carry these questions for the rest of their lives. By 1944, resistance movements are deeply integrated into Allied strategy. In preparation for D-Day, resistance fighters sabotage railways, cut communication lines, and attack German reinforcements moving toward Normandy. Allied commanders later acknowledged that without this coordinated resistance, the landings would have faced far stronger opposition.
Yet success does not bring safety. As liberation approaches, the danger often increases. Desperate occupiers intensify crackdowns. Informants become more active. Prisons overflow. Deportations accelerate. Many resistance members are killed just weeks or even days before their regions are freed. The underground war leaves scars that liberation cannot erase. Networks are shattered. Leaders are dead. Families are broken. Victory comes, but it is incomplete, uneven, and deeply personal. And still, the resistance has achieved something extraordinary. It is proven that total control is an illusion, that even under the most brutal occupation in modern history, defiance can survive, that ordinary people, acting without certainty of survival or recognition, can influence the course of a global war. But the story is not over, because as the Nazis retreat, new conflicts emerge, between resistance groups themselves, between memory and reality, and between justice and revenge. As Allied armies push deeper into Europe, the nature of resistance changes once again. What began in silence and secrecy now moves toward open confrontation. The occupiers retreat, but they do not release their grip easily. For the resistance, this final phase may be the most dangerous of all. In the months leading to liberation, underground fighters step out of the shadows. In France, armed resistance units, known as the FFI, the French Forces of the Interior, prepare to support the advancing Allies. Barricades rise in cities. Weapons hidden for years are finally revealed. Sabotage gives way to direct combat. The liberation of Paris in August 1944 becomes one of the most powerful symbols of resistance. Fighters who once distributed leaflets now engage German units in street battles. Police officers switch sides. Civilians flood the streets. Yet behind the celebration lies a hard truth. Without Allied armies approaching the city, the uprising would likely have been crushed. Resistance alone cannot defeat a modern army, but it can tip the balance. Across Europe, similar scenes unfold. In Belgium, the Netherlands, and parts of Italy, resistance groups seize key infrastructure, delay enemy withdrawals, and guide Allied troops through unfamiliar terrain. In Eastern Europe, partisan units liberate entire regions before regular armies arrive. But liberation brings chaos as well as hope. Years of secrecy, fear, and violence have blurred moral boundaries. Old rivalries resurface. Political tensions erupt. In some areas, resistance groups turn on each other. In Yugoslavia, the end of Nazi occupation does not bring peace, but a new civil war. Former allies become enemies almost overnight. Accusations of collaboration spread rapidly. Some are justified, others are driven by revenge, jealousy, or opportunism. In France, thousands of women accused, often without trial, of having relations with German soldiers are publicly humiliated, their heads shaved in town squares. These acts are framed as justice, but many historians later describe them as expressions of collective trauma. For resistance fighters, recognition is uneven and often delayed. Some are celebrated as heroes, others are quietly pushed aside, their contributions minimized once peacetime politics resume. Many veterans struggle to return to ordinary life. The habits of secrecy, mistrust, and constant alert do not disappear with the enemy. The psychological cost of resistance is immense. Survivors speak of guilt, over comrades lost, missions aborted, civilians killed in reprisals. Some question whether their actions truly saved lives or merely prolonged suffering. These doubts rarely appear in official narratives, but they dominate private memories. In Eastern Europe, the fate of resistance fighters is especially grim. As Nazi forces collapse, Soviet armies advance. For many anti-Nazi partisans, liberation quickly becomes occupation by another power. Former resistance members are arrested, imprisoned, or executed by communist regimes that view them as political threats. The shadow war does not end, it simply changes masters. Documentation becomes a final act of resistance. Diaries, reports, and testimonies are hidden, buried, or smuggled abroad. These records will later form the backbone of historical understanding. Without them, much of the resistance would vanish into myth or propaganda. The scale of resistance is difficult to quantify, but its impact is undeniable. German divisions are delayed, resources are drained, intelligence shapes Allied decisions, lives are saved, sometimes by the thousands, sometimes one at a time. The resistance does not win the war alone, but it alters its course. Perhaps its greatest achievement is intangible. Under occupation designed to crush identity, resistance preserves the idea of choice. It proves that collaboration is not inevitable, that obedience is not the only path to survival. Yet this legacy is complicated. Resistance is remembered differently across nations and generations. Some stories are amplified, others are buried. Political narratives reshape memory, turning a diverse, often chaotic movement into a simplified legend. The truth is less comfortable, but more powerful. The European resistance is not a single story of heroism. It is thousands of stories of courage and fear, sacrifice and compromise, success and failure. It is a reminder that war is not only fought by armies, but by societies under pressure. As the ruins of war give way to reconstruction, monuments rise, names are engraved, ceremonies are held. But the real resistance, the whispered messages, the hidden radios, the midnight decisions, remains largely invisible. And yet its consequences endure.